welcome back. So I apologize for the lighting in here. The sun is being weird. Also, if you hear background noise, that's because I have the fan on. It's October, yet it's like 89 degrees right now, which is ridiculous. It's gonna be on, so if you hear it, just try to ignore it. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about books that have made me cry. There's variations of crying in books. I feel like some books can make you shed a tear or two, while other books make you kind of cry, and then there are other books that make you full on sob. And I couldn't really choose which books I wanted to talk about, so I'm giving you a range of cry sessions if you would like to read any of these. For the first set of books, they're part of a series, and the books are The Right Move and Caught Up by Liz Tomford. It's kind of like I just shed a few tears here and there, but I didn't full on sob. There were just moments in these books that were very touching and made me cry. I literally cry for anything and everything, so this should say something. The little moments in these two books that made me cry were because they were very touching moments, not because anybody died or anything like that. So The Right Move is basically, the first book is sister's best friend moves in with her brother. So in the very first book, it's called Mile High, but that book was not as good as these two books, so I didn't put it in here because it didn't make me cry. But basically, in the first book, the girl, her name is Stevie. So Stevie and Indy, they work together as flight attendants. So Indy recently found out that her boyfriend cheated on her, and she is trying to find a place to live, and Stevie offers for her to live at her brother's house, which is Ryan, and he's a very famous basketball player. And so it's basically forced roommates, forced proximity, and it's also a fake dating trope. The guy in this book, Ryan Shea, literally makes me feel like love like that is not possible in this world that we live in today. He's literally everything that I would want in a man in real life, and it's so upsetting that he's not even real to begin with. So if you would like to read this book, I promise you won't, well, you might not even cry, but I cried a little bit just because his acts of service are very touching, especially this one particular thing that he did for her. Yeah, made me cry. And the next book is called Caught Up, and that book is basically about this baseball player who's a pitcher. He has a 6-month-old son. He needs to find a babysitter because he's on the baseball team and he's a pitcher, and since they travel a lot, he can't watch his son 24/7, so he has to find a babysitter. And the babysitter that he ends up being forced to hire is coach's daughter, and her name is Miller. And this book was kind of sad because of the whole, just whenever there are children involved, I don't know why I always find myself crying. And this is also another book that I didn't really sob in, but I cried a little bit just because I'm telling you, anything with little kids in it just touches my heart, and I just cry. Moving on, the next book that I want to talk about, it's called The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This book is about Kala, and she finds out that her dad is sick and basically goes to Alaska to be around him because she didn't grow up with him. And so she goes to Alaska, and this book made me cry a little more than the first two books. It was more like a tiny little sob sesh that I had while reading it. So the next book is the Grip trilogy by Kennedy Ryan. There are 3 books in this series. The books are Flow, Grip, and Still. I just have this one, and it comes with all 3 of them. That book is about Grip, and Grip and Bristol. Bristol has a brother who lives in LA. I think she lives in New York. He works in the music industry and she hasn't seen him in a long time, so she goes and visits him during spring break. And in that span of a week of her spring break, she gets close to his best friend. His name is Grip, and he's an up-and-coming rap artist. He wants to become a rapper but hasn't gone in there, and in that span of a week that she's there, they get to know each other very well and they have very deep talks about heavy related things. You should search up trigger warnings while reading this book because it talks about police brutality amongst other things, and this book made me sob a little bit because of that. So if you want to read that book, I highly recommend it. Kennedy Ryan, her writing is literally so beautiful. Like, let me just read you one thing. This is not anything sad or whatever, but it's just their interaction is a chef's kiss. She's like, and that's your experience? Have you been disappointed by the rest of the female rainbow? And he goes, oh no, by no means. I don't care what color a girl is. I like the color of smart. The shade of funny and sexy is my favorite hue. Like, are you kidding me? And then she's like, if that isn't a line, then I don't know what is. And he goes, I'm not wasting my lines on you. You're the kind of girl who wouldn't respond to bullshit anyway. And she's like, so what color am I then? And he goes, what color are you? You, Bristol, are a freaking prism. Like, wow. Her writing, I swear there are so many lines in this whole series that are just so beautiful. Like, you should definitely read this. She also has another book called Before I Let Go, and that book also made me cry a little bit. It's about a woman named Yasmin and a guy named Josiah, and they are divorced but have 2 kids that they're co-parenting, and they own a restaurant. So they have to work together while figuring out how to live without one another because they are ex-partners. And her writing in that book is also very beautiful. Some of the lines get to you, so it's not full-on crying, but just a little bit of tears because her writing just really touches you. Another book that I wanted to talk about is Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. This one has children in it too, so that's why I cried a little bit. This book follows Diana, and she has to take care of these 2 little boys that she has gotten guardianship over. I'm not going to tell you how or anything, and I don't want to really tell you much because I don't want to spoil it for you. But I also cried just a little bit while reading that book. It was, I'm telling you, whenever there's children involved, I don't know why, and I don't know what that's about, but I cried a little bit. The rest of the books I'm talking to you about are full-on sobbing books. For the first one, it's Sea Swept by Nora Roberts, and this is a series. There are 4 books in this series, and each of the books follows different brothers. So there are 3 brothers that were adopted by the same people, and these 3 brothers have a lot of trauma that they dealt with. In the start of this very first book, which is called Sea Swept, their dad is in the hospital and is about to die, and his only wish is for all of them to take care of a boy that they have never met, and he's in the hospital room with him, and they're kind of confused as to how he found him and what his backstory is and everything like that. So it follows this little boy's journey as well and how he is with each of the brothers. And I'm telling you, whenever there's children, his backstory, all of their backstories were very sad, but the way that he's able to kind of slowly come out of his shell as the books progress, literally made me sob so hard, and you should search up trigger warnings because there are some heavy topics in this series. So the next book is called All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover, and this book follows a couple and it's set in past and present. In the present, their marriage is falling apart, and in the past you watch how they fell in love with each other. And this book made me cry, like sob a little bit, but not sob throughout the whole book, just in particular moments. I feel like people who are going to get married or are married should read this book just to avoid what happened in this book as far as communication goes. The next book is this book, A Thousand White Kisses by Tillie Cole. I don't even want to tell you what this book is about because I can't really explain. All you have to know is that if you have heard the song If I Could Fly by One Direction, just know that this author literally ruined that song for me. All I felt was pain whenever I would listen to it. I can listen to it now, but when I read that book, in that span of I don't know how long it took me to like get over it, but that song was ruined for me, and that is literally my favorite One Direction song of all time, and she ruined it for me. So yeah, if you want to read it, just know that you will experience pain, a lot of pain, while reading this book. So I know that I told you that I had not read ACOTAR or Throne of Glass in one of my previous videos. I told you that I had started reading Crescent City and House of Sky and Breath before I read those books because they were less intimidating than the rest of the books, since each of the series are much longer than Crescent City and House of Sky and Breath, which is only 2 books. A Court of Silver Flames made me cry like a baby because of the backstory of some of the characters. It was just sad reading, like the last quarter of the book made me cry, and I could kick myself for not having read that series first before reading Crescent City, because I didn't even understand the ending of House of Sky and Breath until I read ACOTAR. And if I would have known, my reaction would have been completely different because I was a little confused as to what had happened. So I'm gonna reread Crescent City and House of Sky and Breath in order for me to fully enjoy the ending of House of Sky and Breath before the next book comes out in January. And then Throne of Glass. With Throne of Glass, I cried, like sobbed like a little baby while reading this book. Kingdom of Ash literally felt like I lost a family. Like, the pain was insurmountable. From the very beginning of this book, all you felt was pain, but it was worth it. All I felt was pain while reading that book. But would I do it all over again? Yes, I would, because it was a 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I would reread it even if the pain, I feel like if I reread it again, I would still cry like a baby, but it was just so good and I loved it so much, despite the fact that it caused me pain. For the last 2 books that I want to talk about, I already talked about them in a previous video, so I'm just gonna mention them very briefly. The first book is part of a series and it's Crooked Kingdom. It's the second book in 6 of Crows. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. The very last book is this, which is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare, the epilogue. The epilogue. just pure pain. And would I read it again and cry all over again? Yes, and it would be worth it every single time. Those are all of the books that I have cried in, at least. Oh, I forgot one more book series. They're right here, and that's the Boys of Tommen series by Chloe Walsh, which is the Binding 13 and Saving 6. The first book is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh, and it has 4 books right now, but there are more books that are gonna come out. It's hard to explain that series, but if you read it, search up trigger warnings, because there's some graphic, traumatic shit in those books, and you should know what you're getting yourself into before reading them. Just know that you will feel your heart shatter into tiny million little pieces, get stomped on, and then you'll laugh a little bit, and then she'll shatter your heart all over again. The question that you may be asking is, but is it worth it? And the answer is yes, absolutely, it's worth it. So I feel like they're all sad, but the ones that hurt my soul the most were Joey's books, which hurt on another level, and it's Saving 6 and Redeeming 6. But as a whole, all of them made me cry. And there's also children, and we already know how it is, but it just causes you so much pain to see what they are going through. But then she makes you laugh and eases the pain away, and then brings it back and eases it away, and it's such a roller coaster, but it's a roller coaster that I never want to get off of. Anyways, that's all that I wanted to talk about for today. Let me know if you read any of these books, or if you cried while reading some of these books. I would really like to know. And if you have any books that have made you cry that you think might make me cry, also can you let me know down below, because I'm always looking for books that will make me cry, but like they have to have a happy ending, because books that don't have happy endings, I don't know what to do with myself when they don't have a happy ending. It literally hurts my whole soul, and I feel like I can never recover from books that do that to me. So they have to have at least a happy ending. So if you have any book recommendations, leave them down below, and I will see you next time. Bye! Thanks for watching!